We're going to move now to what I heard today. It's a quick fire feedback from folk who've been in the workshops, just some wee snippets of thought to be going home with. And I'm going to hand over to Robin Hill, who's going to lead this part of the afternoon. Robin.
Thank you very much, Sally. As Sally says, the next part of the day is going to be genuinely quick fire. We're talking about 30 seconds, half a minute from each of about 40 or so participants. And Graham needs to be speaking by 10:02. So that's the challenge for us all. Let's keep it nice and brief, succinct responses to what you've experienced today. I have a list of names here. I'll call them out. Put your hand up and I shall come running to you with glee and joy. So Sandy Fraser. Sandy, where are you? Sandy, you're way off at the back. Here we go. We'll head down here. Okay, Sandy, are you ready? Let's have 30 seconds on what you've learnt today. What's the big thing for you?
I think the main thing for me is that one size doesn't fit all. I think we're in an emergency in our area of building up what we thought was a food bank. I don't think it'll be a food bank anymore. I think it'll be some form of facility which will be available for the community and offer access to housing, special rights, information, domestic abuse, etc. So this has certainly helped me move on a little bit in my thinking.
Great. Quality without much quantity. So thank you for that. Let's keep the applause to a minimum just now. Claire, Slate or Slate? Claire, there we are. Over to you.
Hi, I think what we've learned today as well, we're in the same group, and it's the evolution of our food bank, and also Social Bite today were amazing. They really made me see a way forward, that it doesn't have to be the same old normal thing. It can actually be cool to, in the community. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Angus McIntosh. Where is Angus? Over there. Here we go. I'll come all the way around here. Da, 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 da. Here we are. Oh, good. Splendid. We've got more than one. Angus.
The folk at Glasgow South East Food Bank let me sit in the corner and speak to people that come in, and of the 120 people I've seen in the past 4 or 5 months, 60% of them have been suffering from benefit sanctions or benefit problems. If they appeal against that, they'll be successful. It's important to note that the government are acting unlawfully in taking people off benefits, and that should be challenged.
Great, thank you. Una. Where's Una? There we go. Over to Una. Da, 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 da.
I think today just further highlights the importance of partnership working between organisations to create models which provide a wraparound service which look at all aspects. And I think it's also just important to kind of hark back to an earlier point, which is just important to not stigmatise the work of food banks too much, as it will kind of force people into kind of a further isolation.
Absolutely. Very well made point there. Thank you very much indeed. Alice Stark. Alice, there we go. Give us your point.
Mine wasn't so much what I learned today, but an idea that we came up with at lunchtime. And we were thinking about maybe staging an action outside Scottish Parliament by holding a food bank collection point to raise awareness to MSPs. It's their fault that people in our country can't eat, so if they won't give them food through their job and through their policies, then they'll have to give it out of their own pocket like what the rest of us are doing. So we thought that might be a nice idea.
Great idea. Thank you very much, Alice. And Maddie, where's Maddie? Back this way once more.
Our group again at lunchtime came up with the idea that on the 7th of May we take either a car or a table and we set up a distribution point of a food bank outside every polling station, and we hand out food to people and draw people's attention to the fact that it should not be happening in this day and age. Thank you.
And we turn to Muriel Pearson.
Thank you. Our idea came from lunchtime as well, and was also, I think, inspired by Rachel's horror at the idea of sanctions this morning, which is that the language that we use should not become commonplace. We should not be comfortable with the word sanctions. We should challenge it, as well as challenging the reality of sanctions. And we also want to challenge the word tax and all the language around tax, about burdens and so on. And let's have a social improvement payment instead of a tax.
Thank you, Muriel. All good points once again. Magdalene, where is Magdalene? Great. I'll come along this way, excuse me. Coming through. In amongst you. There you go.
Thank you. My name's Magdalene. I work for Interfaith Glasgow. And my thought was that in recognition of the really valuable work that many faith communities do in tackling food poverty and recognising the energy, commitment and resources they have in this task, I wonder if they could be encouraged to move more away from a purely transactional model where food is provided towards something we heard about at the stop in Toronto, where where healthy communities are built by people growing, preparing and eating food together.
Holistic approach. Thank you, Magdalene. Thank you. Chris Knight. There's Chris. Hang on. Come all the way around once more. Oh, well done, that man. You're coming in my direction. That's wonderful. There you go.
Thank you. Chris Knights from Musselburgh. Something that I came to the conclusion during the workshop this afternoon, I think the term food bank is too socially respectable. That we need a different title that reflects we're not just about food and that we are about emergency and crisis. And that we make that clear to the world at large, that we are not about a part of the fixture. We're only here because of an emergency, because of a crisis, and therefore we should come to an end.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Deborah Armstrong. Where is Deborah? Great. Just behind you.
Hello. I just wanted to mention something that I don't think got talked about a lot today, but I think that we all understand and know very well. That in the current industrialized food system the world over, the greatest producers and also the greatest reproducers of our next generation are women. And unfortunately, women are also the most vulnerable, and especially women with children. So I would like to incite you that when we create our alternative systems, we undo racism, we undo colonialism, and we undo sexism.
Thank you. Big issues, well described there. Mags Hall. Great, down the far end there, lovely. Over to you, Mags.
Hello, I was in a really great workshop with Ian Shankland from Lanarkshire Community Food and Health Partnership and was really impressed by the way they're providing emergency food provision in partnership with retail and distribution models as well. And I think as well as talking about providing safety nets in our community, we need to think beyond that and help people to access affordable, fresh and sustainable produce. And if we're going to do that, we want to be looking at networks of community cooperatives and other models that allow people to actually access this food beyond emergency provision.
Thank you. Claire Phillips. Where is Claire? Claire, jolly good. Over to you, Claire.
In our group, the last session, it's easy to blame politicians, but we do need to that they're only doing their job, but we do need to hold them to account. We could hold hustings at food banks. We could ask them to bring us their ideas for a solution to end food poverty in Scotland, but we also want to know how we can help them so we can work in partnership.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you. Second last speaker is Joe McCormick. Where is Joe? That's fine.
Hi, I'm from Western Berkshire Community Food Share, and it's been a struggle since we set up in 2012. And what struck me today was the gulf between some of the great ideas that we've heard today and some of the stuff that we talked about back then about empowerment, community development, lobbying and campaigning, education, and the day-to-day operational stuff where you're just trying to get enough food parcels together to feed the people that come through your doors. I don't see with this election or the next election that that's going to change. I don't see the climate changing, and I think it's going to continue to be a struggle. And Rachel spoke earlier about not being distracted, and I think that's an important message for everybody that's involved in some kind of food parcel distribution, is not to be distracted, to make sure you meet the needs of the people who come through the door, but always have one eye to the future because there are some great ideas out there.
Great, thank you very much indeed, Joe. And lastly, Ian Johnson.
We learned a lot about human rights approach to food poverty in our workshop, and sharing the thought that we would need to think about ways that people could be, how an approach to food poverty could be enshrined in UK law. It's part of human rights internationally, but how do we enshrine it in UK law so that sanctions, which we heard are punishments, could actually become illegal and people have the right to eat.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you to everyone. Big round of applause from all. Thank you kindly. Now, just having a quick chat with Graham there during the course of that, we were realising there was so much content coming out in these little 30-second snatches of ideas that perhaps, hopefully, with the recording that we have from today, we can maybe get a transcription of these ideas so that we can share them in one way or another. But many thanks to everyone for all that you've done, and I'm not sure if I'm handing over now to Sally or to Graham. To Sally.
For 2 seconds. Thank you, Robin, for that, and thank you for all those wonderful suggestions and ideas. We're handing over now to Graham Blount. This is going to be Graham's swan song, so I had to say that. This will be the last thing that Graham does as acting council secretary for the Church and Society Council, so thanks, Graham. Martin is taking over. So where do we go from here? That's what the next wee bit is about, and this is when we really do ask you to tell us where we go, because this is just the beginning. We have committed to another event, and that event will take us on further. So it's about figuring out what you want us to do and how we all go on together. So Graham, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sally. As Sally said, my stint as acting council secretary finishes when I stop speaking. But this is not the last word. We've heard a lot of words today, inspiring words and disturbing words. Early on, we heard voices of experience, of people who are absolutely at the centre of today, who are using food banks. What they said was important. What Rachel said of some of those who use food banks and other facilities in Canada was important. What was equally important was that those whose voices we heard at the beginning of today didn't feel comfortable standing up as a user of a food bank at a sympathetic gathering like this. That's disturbing. It's disturbing when that's put into words by Nick, who spoke about the slow, painful death of the spirit that's involved in depending for your next meal on a food bank. I heard other words that I hope will keep on disturbing me after today. One of them is entrenched. None of us want to see food banks entrenched. And equally, none of us want to see poverty entrenched in Scotland or the UK or anyone else. Sanctions, Rachel reminded us, is a word that some of us have become far too familiar with. It's a disturbing word. We're delighted to be part of the joint public issues team with other UK churches who on Monday will be releasing a deeply disturbing report on the impact of benefit sanctions. I have a quick answer. I think the way to get rid of the horrific sanctions regime in this country is quite simple. The government ministers that we will elect at the beginning of May should undertake that if any government minister is half an hour late for an appointment, they won't be paid that month. If any MP who is elected on the 7th of May is discovered to have another source of undeclared employment, they won't get paid. Sanctions is a disturbing word. And so is the whole concept of emergency food. Emergency food. Day after day after day. Food is an emergency for people in Scotland today. It's not right. Don't lose the shock of these words. But don't stay with the shock either. Move on, as nearly all of us are already doing. Move on to do something about it. The task for this that proved too much for the named speaker who took ill at the thought of it, the task for the person to round off today was to send you out all fired up. And having been given that task late yesterday, I woke up this morning, and to be absolutely honest, when the alarm went off, I would have given anything to turn over and go back to sleep. And you don't need me to fire you up. From 9:30 this morning, this place has been buzzing with energy. And it has buzzed all the way through to 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. The energy that we need is here. The people that this is all about, many of them are here. We're at different places on the road. Some of us with a wee embryonic, fragile project that's beginning to do something. And some of us with something that's far further down the road. We don't all absolutely agree with one another. But let's make sure that the differences that there are about tactics, about best ways of running a food bank or anything else, let's make sure these are the creative differences that help us think through what each of us is doing because someone else challenges it, and help us move forward. We do have a common DNA. We do have a common destination on this road. I want to congratulate you for being on the road. I want to thank you for being on the road. And I want you to continue. Our destination is sustainable food justice. We had a wee discussion earlier, I think it was Ewan that suggested that with the wrong title, it shouldn't be beyond food banks, it should be beyond food poverty. Our destination is sustainable food justice. And that means beyond today. It means beyond the reports that have come to us thick and fast in the last few months about the growth of food banks. A very significant one that unfortunately we couldn't squeeze into the programme today that the Poverty Alliance in Scotland produced just a week or so ago. And one way forward is that they're having some regional groups on exactly the agenda of today. And you'll no doubt hear a bit more about that. And there's a leaflet as you go through the cafe on the way out about that. Another way of getting beyond today is in your pack. Can I ask you to get out now the pink card that is in your pack like this? I could have spent 20 minutes standing up here thanking all the people who've made today happen, the wonderful people who've been exciting to work with in the planning group, the people who've worked up front and the people who've worked in the background today, and I could have spent 20 minutes. The way to thank them is not to sit there and clap your hands. The way to thank them is to make sure that we go beyond today. And this card is to help you. You tell us, what project or idea would you like to see going forward from today to take us towards food justice in Scotland? Write what you think on that. If you want to put your name on it, well and good. If you want just to leave it with us without your name on it, equally well and good. If you give it to somebody as you're on your way out, along with your card for Nicola, wishing her a happy holiday or whatever, if you write the one thing that you will want to see taken forward, then the group who've planned this see this as part one. And how we move to part two will be by listening to what you say on these pink cards. That will determine where a movement goes from here, because absolutely the way you thank the people that have put together today and thank yourselves for what one another has contributed today is to take the next step to building a movement. Fill in this card. This is, as more than one person has said today, about people. The power is not somewhere else, although there are a few dragons out there that we need to slay, and there are other people with special roles that we need to get on side to help us slay them. But the power isn't somewhere else. The power is with the people. And as some of the people who come to this part of Glasgow on a Saturday afternoon are wont to say, we are the people. We will be the movement to build food justice in Scotland. And if I can leave you perhaps with two contradictory words, I'm sure everyone was inspired by the story from Canada of the Stop movement. So I want to leave you with two contradictory words. I want you to remember how Stop started. 35 years from now, might we have a story to tell that's as inspiring as that was? Remember how Stop started. But that's not the last word. Let's go.